Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the Power of Know, K-N-O-W. There is power in the word N-O as well, but we'll talk about that maybe later on in this conversation. Today, we're talking about communication. And so I have some special guests with me on today. I have Miss Nina Scott, my mom, and I also have Miss Kenya Halliburton, who is an awesome, phenomenal coach in her own right, doing her thing, impacting lives. So we're going to move into the subject of communication and just kind of talk about what it means and how to do it effectively. I am finding personally that it is just, in a lot of ways, we're missing the mark. We are having debates that lead to dissension and angst and hate, instead of us saying, well, Kenya, I think we should wear a mask. Kenya saying, well, you're stupid and I hate you because I'm saying we should wear a mask, instead of her just saying, well, I disagree. I don't think we should. It stops my breathing or whatever, So how did we get to the point where it's a thing where people are getting canceled? What kind of mess is that? Cancel? How you cancel somebody? A living being, you just cancel them. Well, she said something that hurt my feelings or made me mad, so she's canceled. We canceling him. So how did we get to the point where communication has driven us to these extremes? And either of you can answer, but I wanted to start with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think for me, I think the issue is that we take everything so personally nowadays. Mm-hmm. I think when you talk about communication, there's a two-way aspect to it. And so there's the person that is communicating and then there's the person that's listening. I think a lot of times when we approach communication with people, we're looking for validation of our ideas. I want you to believe like I believe. We have no space for learning about the other person. And you talked in your other episode about compassion, learning to have compassion, knowing how to empathize with someone else's journey. Honestly, I think it just comes down to we have become very selfish in our experiences, mm-hmm. and just not willing to be open. And I think it also kind of comes down to personality type. Mm-hmm. We all are made different. We have different experiences. And so if you're not open to allowing someone to express themselves, obviously, you want it to be respectful, but we just all express ourselves in different ways. We have different backgrounds. So if you aren't able to allow people space to be them, then I think that's where we are falling short. We want everybody you have to think like me. Right. And if you don't, right. It's right. Personal.
Exactly. I always bring up the situation with my husband when we first got married. He's a chef, and he said, your mama's a cook. I'm a chef. And he really did go to Le Cordon Bleu. He got the degree and all of that stuff. And he has the gourmet cooking. And he's also from Mississippi. So he got that country down home cooking. So, anything you want, he could probably come up with it. He might put his little twist to it, but it's going to be good. He's going to put his little twist to it. And when we first got married, I'm a therapist and, I'm a former therapist, and now I'm a coach. And so everything that I think about is related to relationship and to thinking and feeling and loving and all of that. And one day he was talking, he said, I need some time. And I was like, oh my God, he needs time. We just got married. Whatever do you mean you need time? He was like, time, the spice, THYME. But just not understanding his language. That's all he talks about is food. He loves you with his food, don't he, Mama?
Yes.
That's his ministry. If you have, as a matter of fact, he don't even know you until he's cooked for you. I'm like, yeah, do you remember my friend Joetta? Who? The one you made breakfast burritos for. Oh, yeah, how's she doing? How's her husband? So he knows you by what he's cooked for you and all of that. So that's his thing. But I had to learn that language for him, and one time I cooked for him I was trying to hurry up and throw something together, and that's what I did. Threw it together so I could go out with my friend. And when I came back, he was mad, and I was like, "What's your issue?" I was like, "I'm not a chef. Eat the wings and shut up about it." He was like, "No, because there's no way that I would have served you that." And I just had to think about it that, I still to this day hate cooking for him because he just has his own palate. Did you cook this for 7 minutes? How many minutes did you? So we don't agree on that at all. But I just did have to learn that there is a certain way that he wants it prepared. And he wants me to put my love into it if I'm going to cook for him the same way he does for me. And that's just how he communicates. He communicates through his ministry of food. And so, you have to learn other people's language. And you hit it nail head on, Kenya, when you were just talking about learning other people's perspective, having compassion on what their plight is and what their background is. If you're in a relationship with somebody who grew up in a house where the parents were drunk all the time and they were fighting all the time, they're not going to have that sense of love and, we're going to be a big happy family. They used to drama. They used to fighting and conflict. And so people are going to love you from their experience. But in communication, it's important for you to understand where they're coming from instead of making judgments, finding out where they're coming from. So at least you can understand their plight and why they're responding the way they're responding. What are your thoughts, Mama?
Pretty much the same thing. We take for granted that anything that we say is going to be accepted. And that's just not true. If you are dealing with someone from a completely different background, everything that you say is going to be filtered through that background experience. Mm-hmm. And you have to be I don't want to use the word careful because that implies that you're going to be different from who you really are. But you have to be cognizant of the fact that when you're talking to someone, that's the way it's going to be viewed through their own experiences. My daughter taught me a long time ago, people love you the way they know how to love. Mm-hmm. And I had never thought about that, but that's a form of communication as well. Once you have grown into whatever situation you have gotten into, when that attachment is made, those attachments generally are permanent. Can they be changed? Yes, but you can't expect that to happen just because it's your opinion. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I think that to date, we have just pushed the envelope too much. I mean, it's okay to express your opinion. It's okay to express your thoughts. We all have thoughts, feelings, opinions about things, but pushing it to the degree that you are negatively impacting someone else is how it becomes problematic. And people are saying, well, you're just too sensitive. You just need to just, man up or woman up, put your big girl panties on and be okay with it. But I don't have to be okay with you insulting me on purpose and saying, oh, it's just for your own benefit, oh, it's just constructive criticism. If it doesn't build, it's not constructive. Yeah. It's destructive and you're destroying. And I say all the time that you can build or you can completely destroy with your mouth.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that sometimes our own internal fears and issues can impact the way that we communicate with others. I know I've had a experience with a friend of mine who, misinterpreted something that I said a certain way. Like I made a blanket statement introducing her to another friend, and whatever was going on inside of her, she started telling herself a certain story based on whatever she was dealing with. Maybe she had friends in the past that had, kind of said and done things that hurt her. And when we finally got a chance to speak, she expressed herself and told me like, hey, you said this thing and I felt this way. And I was like, what? Oh, girl, I didn't mean that. I was thinking something totally different, And so I think, sometimes, knowing what's going on with you and being aware about what's going on with you can help you navigate some things. But of course, you have to have someone who's willing to listen to, and not just kind of attack you for taking something that was meant one way and you kind of read your own story into it. So I think it can be a challenge, being able to express yourself. And like I said, I'm a personality test geek. Like I love studying personalities. And I know that I've discovered that even for me, I have a very rare personality type. So when I'm speaking and communicating with people, people don't always they don't always get me. And I was watching
I get you, girl, because you a Detroiter.
yes. Yes, that's a whole other aspect to
Right. That's a whole nother animal. Right.
Yeah, but I saw like a guy was talking about he's one of those guys that does like the little skits on personality types on like YouTube, and he was just giving different examples of how different personality types communicate or try to connect. And it was just very interesting because somebody like me who kind of likes to be in alignment with whoever I'm around. So I'm looking to connect with you through shared interests. So I'm looking to see where we have that chemistry, where somebody else might be wanting to connect with you or communicate with you through humor. And you're like, what? Why is they always telling a joke? This is so irritating. You know what I mean? But it's like knowing and understanding that people just have different ways that they try to communicate and connect. And I feel like that's something that I feel like if we were taught that like in school, we would be able to communicate better.
Yes. I always go back to the Bible because it's just a blueprint for me. And it talks about know those who labor among you. How are you going to agree with somebody if you don't even know them or know about them and who you're talking to? And like you said, with the personality types, like for instance, I had a boss, I used to call her Nurse Ratchet because because if you ever saw the movie One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Nurse Ratchet was really, I mean, straight laced, white, stark, going by the book, boom, 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 very direct and just, not really flexible at all. And I had a boss like that, but I'm just kind of fly by the seat of my pants. I'm a crack a joke and just really loose in how I communicate. But I'm old enough and mature enough to understand that everybody doesn't communicate that way. So I didn't change myself to talk to her, but I knew that particularly if I wanted her to hear me, there were certain ways that I had to present the message to her. If you want the person to hear you and you want the message to be heard, you got to put it in a package that they're going to open. Otherwise, you're just speaking to the air and the message won't be communicated. You're going to get frustrated. She's going to get frustrated or he's going to get frustrated and the growth won't happen and the change won't happen. So you really do have to speak the other person's language. And I believe that that's why God gave us 2 eyes and 2 ears and 1 mouth, because with that, it means that you're listening and you're hearing. You're hearing and you're watching and you're observing this person's behavior and finding out what they're passionate about and finding out what makes them tick and finding out what makes them angry. And so if that is the case, like with my husband, I know there are certain things that irritate him. Unless I want to irritate him, I don't do that. and vice versa. And if he wants to irritate me, he knows what to do to do that. But you just try to avoid situations where it's going to cause conflict, and you learn to avoid. You don't learn about people by asking 50,000 questions. Yeah. Frankly, I'm getting tired of answering questions. I'm getting tired of people asking me who I am and what I'm about. And tell me about Scott-Terrell. Watch me, Google me, and you'll see all about who I am, what I've written, all the podcasts I've been on, and all of that stuff. You can see my website. But watch a person, connect with the person. Like Kenya, you said, find a mutual interest and talk about that instead of just feeling like you see a one video and you know all about that person. Oh, he racist because he said X, Y, and Z. But do you know why he said that? Do you know where he grew up or how he grew up? Do you know the pain that he's speaking from? So really, before you make assumptions about somebody or make a connection with somebody, watch and observe, and then give your input or decide whether or not what they've got to offer you in the area of love and compassion. I always say this too, that if the love that they're giving, if you ain't buying the love they're giving, you ain't buying it. If it's not enough for you, you get to choose whether you stay or not.
Yeah.
You get to choose whether you want to be in a situation with this person who has the propensity for violence or is abusive, or even if it isn't even that deep. You get to decide whether or not what they're giving you is enough. And if it's not, you can walk away. You don't have to ice them. You don't have to disrespect them, but you can just decide that they're not going to be a part of your intimate circle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
It's something that came to mind earlier in the conversation. You mentioned something about debate. And I have a friend of mine who teaches speech and debate. And one of the things that she said was, you're debating the idea, not the person.
Yes.
So you're looking at, you're not attacking the person. You're just kind of looking at the idea and flipping it around. So you're separating it, and it does help you kind of, because if you notice, like if you ever see not the debates, presidential debates and political debates of late are a whole different beast, but in the past you would see them debate and you wouldn't see the emotion. It was just like, okay, this is what I believe. And then, you know what I mean? So I feel like if we can kind of get back to some of that, it could definitely be helpful from us taking things so personally.
Yes, absolutely. I had a class where I taught that at a college, and I taught communication, and I did a debate exercise where I would write a subject on the board, really hot topic subjects like abortion or things of that nature, and I would write it on the board, and I had them go to each side of the classroom. So if you were forward, you were on this side. If you were not forward, you were on that side. And nobody called names. Nobody got into any kind of fight or any kind of altercation, but they got on their side. They told why they believed that. And people were, interested in finding out why they thought the way they thought or what their thoughts were. And we had set the ground rules that there wasn't going to be any of that negativity. It just, you state your facts, you state what you believe about it, and nobody's going to judge you for it. And it really was effective because people sometimes would go to the other side, just like, okay, well, that makes sense. Now I'm starting to think the way you're thinking because of the way that you presented the information. So it's all about presentation and knowing yourself and knowing those who you're in connection with.
And I think that's the key to real communication. When you allow yourself to observe and listen, you can be the person who does all of the talking. But if you're doing all of the talking, then you're not going to gain anything, because you're the one who's constantly giving out. But if you allow yourself to just listen and find out, okay, where can I plug into this? Or how can I communicate with this person? Or why is this person feeling that way? Listening will give you the answers to those questions. But if you are doing all of the talking, much of that you will miss. So you have to learn how to make sure that when you are communicating with someone, you allow them to feed into you as well. It can't be a one-sided thing.
Right.
Yeah, I think people just want to be heard. And I have a girlfriend who teaches the language of empathy. And when she's running these groups, she'll, someone will share, and everybody's job is to listen. And then after the person finishes sharing, people begin to, pour into the person. But the rule is you can't go into preaching. You have to kind of understand what the person is expressing as if you were them. And so when you begin to share and provide them feedback, you're sharing from a place of, well, I can understand how what you shared could be painful, instead of going into like, well, girl, Jesus is everything. And, because sometimes when people are at their lowest, or they're really challenged with something, or angry, it's really hard to get through to them through like a preachy thing. So she teaches you how to listen and how to empathize. And, I think, like you said, like listening and empathy, those are really important, because if people feel like you are holding space with them, they're more likely to listen to you when it's time for that exchange, because they feel like, oh, she gets it. Yeah.
Right.
So.
Right. I had a class. It was actually I think it was a 3 to 5 day workshop on vicarious trauma. And we had to learn about how to deal with our clients. I was working at a facility as an in-home therapist with at-risk families, and in dealing with the children who had experienced trauma, instead of saying, because children are they're going to be honest about how they feel, and they're going to just say it flat out, I'm a loser, I'm fat, and I hate myself. And so instead of saying, oh no, you're not, finding out where this is coming from. Why are you thinking this way? Why are you saying this about yourself? And then after they've expressed that, dissect that and talk about what their beliefs are that are false, and what they can build on, instead of just immediately, like you said, preaching at them, or going right into, no, you're not. Oh, no, you're beautiful, because they've heard that, but they've never heard anybody actually listen and say, why do you believe that about yourself? And what can we do to help you through that? How can we help you change that? And it's about compassion that you have, and the ability to not just be heard, but to really listen with your heart.
Yeah.
Mom, what is the biggest lesson that you've learned about communication? I know that the school is a whole nother animal, but the church work that you do, what have you learned about communication in that? Because it's a big business now. It's not just about the word and the choir anymore. It's about trying to make this business work instead of really worshiping. How have you learned about communication and doing it effectively in the church house?
Well, one of the things that I've learned through the years is you have to be you. Um, one of one of my challenges, I am a classically trained musician, and my choir would be invited to all kinds of churches, large, small, uh, very what we would call up and in, sometimes very down home. Okay, and when we would go to places, often when I would walk in the door, I could feel how they perceived who I was. And it was often my job, as far as I could see, to make them comfortable. Because if you're walking into a down home situation and you are bringing 50 kids in there in formal attire, and they know that you are classically trained, because that's what they know about you, the first thing they do, they feel like is, well, is she going to look down on me? And you can feel this level of anxiety when you walk in the door. So it was always incumbent to me to make sure that whoever I am talking to understood that I'm no better than you are.
Mm-hmm.
We are all human beings. We are all God's children. And one of the things that I learned that you taught me that I taught you, I didn't realize I was doing this. When we would go to places, we would do some gospel, but the kind of gospel that we did generally was a little bit more um,
Technical.
technical than some of the things that they would be doing in the churches. Uh, a little bit more formal. Yeah, that's a better word, a little bit more formal. And so sometimes when we would go to churches and Charlotte would tell me, well, Mama, you need to do gospel. You need to do something like this. And I would tell her, no, that's not what we're doing here. And she would say, but why? That's what these people love. That's what they want to hear. I said, no, I have to do what we do. It's not me. I can't do what they do. If I go in there trying to do what they do, then I'm going to fail miserably because they can do it better than I can. But if I go in and do me, if I go in with the kind of music that I do best, then they will enjoy it. They will be exposed to something new. They will grow and they won't feel like I'm stomping on their territory.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to think about all of those things when you're going into a church or a school or any kind of situation where you're dealing with people, that you want to make them comfortable in knowing that you and they do have something in common. You don't feel like you're any better than they are. And that whatever you're going to offer is going to be something that maybe they can grow from. And as they in turn perform for you, that you appreciate what they have done and are doing as well. So I guess that's the best way I can answer your question about communicating in the
Just
church.
showing them,
yes,
that we all are one family and
all God's children.
Yeah.
And there is no hierarchy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that needs to be a message sent to society at large, because we've gotten this superstar mentality. I got 10,000 followers on whatever, and at the end of the day, you ain't got no real friends in real life. So what does it mean?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we really have to go back to looking at what's important, what our values are, and recognizing that everybody is important. Everybody is somebody.
Yes.
And in communication, I think that's how people gravitate to me, is because they see that no matter what background they have, I've been in situations where they were like, I didn't like you at first. I thought you were this way.
Mm-hmm.
But they found out, girl, you just as crazy as I am, or you down to earth just like me, And so just letting people know, hey, I'm not coming against you. We're working together. We're in this together. And I think that message has to be communicated in order for communication to be effective again and for us to make those connections again. It's just knowing that we all are in this together. And no man is an island. We can't do this by ourselves, but we have to do it in a way that we're respectful and kind and compassionate towards one another, and got your own emotions in check, and knowing one another and knowing yourself. I think that is really the key to all of it.
Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm.
So I think that we have covered it all today, ladies. What do you think?
Yes.
So as far as communication is concerned, know yourself, know those that you're connecting to or have connected with. Be compassionate, be yourself, be kind, and listen,
Be willing to
observe.
learn.
Yeah, be willing to learn. And I was talking to a young lady who was interviewing me to be her coach. And she's like, I got to pull it out of you, all of the stuff that you've done. I was like, yeah, you got to pull it out of me because I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here to serve you. And I need to know what it is that you need. Because, I mean, we could talk about all of the degrees and 50,000 that I've done. Who cares about that? If I'm not able to serve you, then this relationship doesn't even make sense for either of us. Mm-hmm. It's a waste of time. So just do those things and know that you do have a support system. You just have to connect with the right people at the right time in the right way. And communication can happen. You just have to do it skillfully and do it from your heart and not from your head. And if you don't know, now you know. Thank you for watching The Power of No, and be well.